When Press and I drove off in the Star Car, we had no idea that we were leading the filmmakers on a voyage to an uncharted realm of movie visual effects. Fortunately, our navigators were Gary Demas and John Whitney Jr. and their inspired vision.
We have an audience that is always hungry for something new, fresh, and original looking, and I think computer graphics is going to provide, for many years to come, the best in entertainment.
The use of the computer to create a simulation with a degree of photorealism became our early goal, because if we're going to be projecting an image on a big screen and it's going to suspend disbelief, it can't have jaggies, it can't have low resolution, it's got to look sharp, and it has to be intercuttable. So you have to be able to record a color image on a 35mm film with a pin registered movement in the camera, you know, all this basic stuff, and we set about bringing all those elements together, and Digital Productions was the venue, the scene where that took place.
So we set out to begin to do complex scenes with lots of information in them and large volumes of scenes using the Cray supercomputer, and we got the Last Starfighter project launched with Ron Cobb.
And it was very, very clear from the time I first met John Whitney Jr. and joined his company, Digital Productions, that what we were going after was photoreal simulations, the idea of a kind of synthetic photography, which was very, very exciting to me. I definitely saw that potential and was drawn to the company for that reason. And so here was our chance to see if we could actually do it.
It was a breakthrough type of idea, which I thought was very interesting. It was, one, I had no experience with special effects of any kind, so anything, I was going to be a novice walking into any situation. And the idea of doing something that would have kind of historical implications was fun. Talking to Ron Cobb, he, more than anybody else, sold me on the idea that this could be done, that it could look real, photoreal, and as long as Lorimar was willing to give it a shot, and that was really where the money was going to come and where the bottom line was, you know, that this all could turn out just fine.
I was going a lot by John Whitney Jr.'s enthusiasm about exactly what was possible, and I took his word for it, you know.
And what I did was say, well, now our deadline is, I think at that point it was 6 months away. It had to be in theaters in 6 months, and I said, so how many frames are we doing? And they told me whatever the number was. And I said, how many polygons in each frame? And they told me whatever it was. And I said, and how long does it take to render a frame at that level? And they told me, and I stood up on the chalkboard and did the math. I said, according to your own figures, it's going to take you 17 months to complete this film.
Jeff Oken came into my office one time, we were about halfway through, and said, it can't be done. We're not going to do it. We're not going to make it. We're not going to make it in time, and the special effects are just not going to work.
Not even your mighty starfighters will be able to save you.
We shall see, Zor. We shall see.
You're not going to finish your film in time. I have 3 model companies standing by. I can get all these sequences shot the way that you boarded them and delivered in 5 months without increasing your budget. All you have to do is fire Digital Productions.
So I basically just said to Jeff, go back. It's going to work. Go back and make it work, and I never want to hear you say that again.
Victory or death!
Victory or death! Victory or death! Victory or death! Victory or death! Victory or death!
The process, like any pioneering effort, is going to have its ups and downs. And here we were pioneering, like I said, right in the middle of doing a movie with really no history to fall back on as to how long this would all take.
So we agreed we would simplify the shots, which is a real shame.
It was very exciting to be in a situation like that, to have film backers trust us enough to develop the software, train the staff, build the models, and get things going all on parallel tracks. What we had to do at DP with regards to Ron Cobb's designs, we had to take his designs and draft them.
Ron had some extraordinary talents that were very important. One matter had to do with the creation of the design of the Gunstar ship. And in order to make a a 3D database of that design, Ron had to draw. And he was able to do this freehand, front and side and top and bottom views of the ship, as if he was actually making mechanical engineering drawings for its actual manufacture as a real thing. And he was able to do that. And that made our job just so much easier because we were able to take those drawings and input them into the computer.
I got launched into digitizing drawings, storyboarding, showing the CGI animators, you know, how the spaceships were supposed to fly. Knowing something about aircraft motions pretty well translates into spacecraft motions. The Gunstar was a remarkable machine. Ron had figured out every little nut and bolt on it. I was very happy to see a working spacecraft with like real thrusters and obeying real spacecraft motions.
It was designed for that, to be an actual spacecraft. So all the attitude jets are completely there, and I wrote big manuals on how we could automate this. And once we got all that down and we were able to instruct the computer to create these sequences of frames, there was not enough power left to let us see it until we laboriously put it on film. That was a huge blind spot, you know, and only then could you say, oh, I got that number wrong, or it was in the wrong position, and then you go back, change the number, and you have to go through the whole process again. We went from that to where we had instant playback, at least in a vector form, a kind of wireframe form. We could keyframe or position things and have the computer animate for us, and then we could alter the animation. And we ultimately had tremendous little handles on all the rotations and translation coordinates of any object, as well as the object itself. So at the end, we were able to just, as I say, almost use it like a word processor. We could just make scenes and see them instantly and correct them, see them instantly, correct them again, see them instantly, correct them again, see them instantly, one more correction, see them instantly, and got it. But you have to have that loop. If that loop is days, you know, that's a machine very much in the way.
I remember sleeping on the bench of the Cray, and I wasn't the only one. There were a lot of late hours, a lot of long hours, people just cranking away trying to make sure everything came out and not let a single bad popping polygon get into the show. And so we lived there on the facilities. And you have the Cray self-portrait that we rendered, and it is in the shape of a C, and it has a nice round bench around it, and that was a comfy place to get an hour of sleep before you had to go back in and fix the next bug. You could also stand in the middle of the Cray, and that was kind of eerie. It was like, will I have children? Will they be normal?
It was really difficult because, again, we were waiting for something we didn't know was going to come out. You know, we didn't know if it was going to come out and if it would come out on time even. There was a lot of worry. The studio was worried, we were worried, they were worried, everyone tried to keep, I know the digital, you know, had to spoon feed us the information in order not to freak us out because of a lot of the problems they were having.
It was a very exciting place to be because you would walk in and like once a week you'd hear a little shout of triumph from one of the little cubicles and a head would pop up and then it would prairie dog all over the place, meaning all the heads in each cubicle would pop up and there'd be a mass rush to this one cubicle and somebody would go, you know, Eureka, I've discovered, somebody discovered how to place multiple lighting sources in something, and it's like everybody would go nuts for like 2 hours.
Now we can do this. Yeah, I come in the morning and says, we can now do this. You know, we can now, each time there's a little more. And I'd have to convey that to Lorimar and Nick and everything. They can do this now, at least they say they can.
They did particles before there were particle system things, you know. It was just amazing.
And we no longer had to just claim we could do it, we now could show that we could do it, you know.
So we were writing software as we were doing production, and it was pretty exciting and wild time.
Well, the scariest part of all of that was that Ron had worked out exactly how he wanted the starships to look, and my challenge was to take all of the architectural motifs that he'd established and integrate it into what was eventually going to be rendered digitally. And there were a couple of real challenging problems. One of them was that all the rendering software hadn't been developed yet. So how this stuff was actually going to look, we didn't know. And all in all, we decided to play the thing relatively conservatively and go with simpler designs that we knew that the computer would probably be able to match.
On one side you saw where all the starfighters gathered, where all the technicians were, where the leader would talk to the warriors. and look this way, and you would see the gun stars all locked in their hangars and being shifted around, and the night sky in the distance, and the pallet that would take them out to be launched. Yeah, this the biggest stage at MGM at the time.
The method for integrating all of this was to have a couple of real set pieces, the actual landing gear of the ships that you were going to eventually turn the camera around and see. When we're shooting towards the screen and towards the starfighters, we had the actual landing gear we could shoot through, and that was one of the integrative live action components.
Rodney, Rex Simon, lift a little bit. Action! Okay, everyone peek around, get a head in. There you go.
Jeff Oken, he was instrumental in knowing where we would need interactive materials like smoke to really pay off the combination of doing things both live action and digital. When the Gunstar lands in the park at the end is a composite shot that didn't have smoke. And I remember Jeff adding smoke, which really gave a sense of the connection between the two mediums.